Hey guys, this is Ram from Crossmind Studio. Welcome back to another chapter from animated content creation series. It's been a while we talked about this series. So today what we're gonna do is take care of the rest of the stuff in the layout like ground, grass, rocks and all that, and populate the all that blocky geometry with the actual model, including the skull model, the bottle, what we prepared in the chapter number 5 and 6. So let's get to the work, and just to keep in mind, the original idea was to scatter the ground grass and all that with the particles, but since the recent developments in the geometry node and the blender, I think it would be a good idea to get used to the new things rather than continuing with the old methods. So we are going to scatter all this stuff, not the final version of this stuff with the geometry nodes. So let's get started. Now before I begin with all that, I'll just clean this up a bit. I don't need these strokes from the grease pencil, and I can also just arrange things a bit. You can skip this part if you'd like to. Now I'll just open the files from the chapter number 5 and 6 and import all the stuff that we made. So this is the skull final model, and we don't need the multi-res on this because we are done with all that. So I can just copy this one and go to the layout file and paste it. So it appears right over here. All right, and then similarly we can go to the bottle file, and so for some reason I couldn't locate the final file of the bottle, but so it's okay. I can just get rid of this unnecessary stuff, and I mean, it's not unnecessary, just that we made some render out of it. Now I'll just select everything and make the bottle active object and parent everything. Keep Control P and object keep transform. All right, so this way we have everything parented to the bottle. Now just reset the location and rotation object, set origin to, put my cursor over here somewhere, and then set origin to 3D cursor. So that's fine. Just to simplify things a bit further, I can create one circle over here, RX90. This is just so that it's easy to select in the viewport and everything is parented to this bit organized shape object. So we have this model. Now I can just select everything and copy, Control C, and paste it in the final file. So the model appears over here. Now we can get rid of this old bottom that we used for the purpose of the layout, and I'll just move this skull aside. Follow this up with a very basic command. So I'm just going to align things, the old bottle where the old bottle was with the new bottle. So we have this over here, and now just select this bottle. I'll just make a new collection for this one, bottle final. All right, and then now what we need to do is replace all these dummy models of the skull with the final version. Now all these models were instances of this version over here, which is a skull markup. So what we can do is select all these models and transfer the data from this new version that we made here. So but to do that, we need to make sure that it's of the same scale and of the same orientation. So let's just see if there is any scale and orientation on this one. Alt R. So yeah, orientation is applied. Alt S. So yeah, this is the final scale. So I'll just move it over here. Let me just isolate both of these. And in this case, once we apply the orientation and scale on this one, the newer model, all the rest of the stuff is going to pick up the right size and orientation, so we don't have to retouch anything else, since we placed all those skulls and all that like manually and very precisely, with, based on the need of the layout. So apply the scale with Control A, apply rotation with Control A. Now I can just put it over here and make a new collection. Make a new collection and call this one Skull Final. Now, just to be a bit organized, I'll select all these collections, Skull Final and Bottle Final, and move these into a new collection called Final Assets. And you can just drag the final bottle into this one and Skull Final into Final Assets. So now we have both the final assets into one. Yeah. So now let's just select the mockups of the skull, and then you can select the final model of the skull over here and make sure it's active. So this one is active now. And after that, I can simply press Ctrl L and link object data. And you can see everything is replaced with the new version. So there's a bit of offset, but I guess it's to do with the pivot point. I can just shift the pivot point slightly above. Yeah. There you go. So this looks good. I'll just save the file, and I think more or less we are done with this one. So now if I go to the camera view, you can see all that low poly stuff is gone and things are starting to look much more detailed. All right. Now for the grass model. So now for the grass clumps, I have these very basic models which I'm going to use. So I didn't actually add much of the details. So you can see this was the grass model that we used for the layout purpose, and there is not much difference in the actual model that I used because honestly, there was no need. The scene is so dark and the main focus was not even on the grass. You can use multiple different combinations of the different kind of grasses or even any other foliage you want to try out. So these are simple extrusions. So I don't think I need to bother you with the details of this kind of modeling. We have been through with this many times. So all I need to do is bring a shader editor. Let me just make a shader from the scratch for this. I'll just add a light in the background over here of for the grass so that you guys can see the effect of the shader. So I'll just bring one new shader. And you can use a principled BSDF if you want. Let me just transfer this one to the link. Yeah. But in this case, I'll make it with a translucent shader. Translucent BSDF, plug this one into surface. So now this is completely translucent. I don't want that. I'll just combine this one with the diffuse. So I have a diffuse material over here. Maybe add some glossy to this one, a slightly glossy material on top of this. Yeah, a very subtle value of the glossiness, and then I can combine this one with the translucent like this. Now for the color, I can bring one hue saturation node and bring some warm color over here and plug this one into the color of the diffuse and the color of the translucent. Let me just increase the intensity of the light. 50. And then we can add some variation in the color for each random clump. So for that, so the 0.5 is the actual hue. So we need to find number closer to this one, like 0.46 gives us a reddish tone, and 0.53 gives us a 0.53, 0.46. So this is the range that we need. So in the randomization, I'll bring one map range and from minimum we'll make it 0.45 to maximum 0.55, 0.53, and same values 0.44, 0.52, something like this. So that I mean, just play around closer to those values, and you should find just keep the clamp on, and you should find this variation of the slightly reddish to greenish the transition going on. So now that we have the grass, what I can do is we have the final bottle, we have final skull, final grass. Now all we need is some stones, the final one. So honestly, in the final scene, I didn't actually spend much time on the stones. Uh, these were like pretty chunky. With the materials, it looked kind of fine. But just in case, if you really need to make some stones, there are plenty of tutorials, but I'll just give you a quick overview. Just make a cube and bevel this one and add some geometry into this. And after that, all you need to do is uh, new collection stones, final, and add this one into the final assets. All right, stone. So shade smooth this one, and pretty simple method of creating stones. Add displacement and bring one empty over here. And on this displacement, I'll add a texture. This texture could be anything, but I'll use Voronoi. Increase the scale of this Voronoi texture. And then in the coordinates of the texture, you can use object and use this empty as object. So you can quickly explore different forms like this. Now you can keep on making different copies of the different scale, and this will give you different sizes and variation of the stone. So I'm going to freeze it. Freeze with the Control A. I'm applying the modifier. I don't need this. And then all I need to do is make sure that everything is resting on the floor on the same level, and the pivot point is sorted out. So apply the rotation, apply the scale. There we have it, some stones, nice looking stones. And then we can go to the render, enable some nice HDR, and create a very simple material for this one. So for the stones, I think I can create a simple texture with noise. So simply bring one noise into the base color, apply on these as well. With the Control L, you can link material and play with the scale, and then you can plug another noise into this one, and this will give you some nice texture. Increase the detail, increase the roughness, and then you can bring one color ramp and play with the contrast and all that. So quite basic stuff, guys. And what I like to do about this, add a displacement, but we are not going to use the actual displacement, true displacement, but we'll just use it like a bump. So use the same texture into the height over here, and this should give you some nice texture like this. And then you can use the same value into the specular roughness, and post that you can actually colorize this one with another ramp. We are going to tweak the color later when we actually put it in the final layout. For now, I'll leave it as it is. So I guess this looks fine, guys. And then You can delete the slide, bring everything back, and then we can start working on the geometry nodes now. And before we do that, let's get rid of these particles. We can hide the skulls. 3D layout. Let's make a different collection for the skulls. Skulls on ground, and yeah, we can hide it, and then I'll hide the bottle as well. We can select all these stones that we made for the layout purpose. Layout stones, markup stones, and we are going to deal with this later, the markup stones. For now, let's just hide it. And we can also hide the 3D layout assets. Skull final we can hide, delete the slide, and now we only thing we need is the stones and the grass. Apply the scale, apply the rotation. So now let's start working with the geometry nodes. You can find the geometry node editor in the editor general list, and I have the ground selected. And make sure you're using 2.93 if you want to use at least the latest feature of the geometry nodes. But even the 2.92 had some basic features, and it's constantly changing and improving. So hopefully this will still be relevant in the near future. So click on the new, and this will give you a new network of the geometry, just like the shader editor. All right. So now for scattering the grass on this one, what we need is just like particles, we need some points scattered on top of this. So let's say point instance, point distribution. So I'll plug this one over here, and this will give you point distribution, and you can just increase and decrease the density. Now my ground kind of disappeared. That's because we are seeing the points, only the points. So if you want to see the ground and the points both, then you can simply go to the geometry and click on the join geometry, and this way you can combine both of these, the ground, the original geometry, and the distributed points on top of this. Now this is kind of scattering the points everywhere, and we don't want that. We want a specific area to be where the grass should appear. So what you can do, so just like how you create the vertex groups, you can create a vertex group and load it over here as attribute. So you can either click over here and type grass, and this will create a new attribute. And later if you click over here and make a vertex group called grass, then that means the same thing. And this grass vertex group is basically going to load up the same. These both are basically one thing. So you can do that, or just to keep workflow simple for the beginner, I'll make a vertex group and call this one grass. And then in the weight paint, we can start painting the grass. Now the effect is not visible. That's because it's not loaded up over here. So in the density, choose the grass. There you go. It's quite familiar, the method that we have been using in the modifiers. So now I just enable the ground, the skulls. So we just want the grass around it. Increase the density. So we just want the grass around it, and we don't want it to interfere any of the main shapes that we have over here. Let me just bring a timeline. There is never enough room on the screen. So some patches over here. So there you have it, some nicely scattered points. And I think I can subtract these points. These are not visible in the layout. Yeah, so whatever is not visible in the layout, you don't need that. So just subtract this. This is unnecessary eating up the memory. So this is one of the way, and once you have your points, you can just go to the object mode, and in the points, in the geometry node, click on the point instance. So this node will help you assign a object which you need to use as instance on top of those points. So since we have the grass in the collection, we can load the grass from here, grass clumps. So you can see the grass appeared over here because right now it's using the whole collection. We don't want that. We want the individual objects to be loaded as separate object. So the grass kind of looks too big, and obviously you can control it. So in the point, click on the point scale. So after we have distributed the points, you can scale it down. So by default, it's going to give you a vector value like the X scale, Y scale, and Z scale. But we don't want that. We just want one overall value like the float value, and you can use this to scale down your grass. Yeah, so far it's pretty simple setup. Now increase the density, decrease the density, that's totally up to you. Now after this, if you want to randomize the rotation of the grass, what you can do is the scale, rotation, and position, all of these are called attributes. So for attribute related stuff, you will have to go to the attribute and find all that over here. So attribute randomize will help you randomize any attribute. So let's say if I type rotation, or you can just find the rotation. So you can randomize the rotation like the minimum and maximum. Or if you want to specifically control different like the X, Y, and Z, then you can, instead of float, you can use the vector value. So I'll go to the weight paint and subtract some from here. So let's keep it not too wide, and so yeah, this looks fine. And it's not the best grass, but we are not even trying to make it look best. So feel free to explore your own designs of the grass. But this is really not the thing. This is just a filler thing. I didn't actually spend much time on this. So we have a grass setup going on, and similarly you can scatter the rocks. Now before I talk about the rocks, I just want to show you one more example. So let's say if you don't want to paint the grass values like the weight paint, let's say if you don't want to do that and you just want to scatter the grass overall, if you have a bigger land and you can't really paint details here and there, and you just want to use some texture to distribute your grass, what you can do is you can use a texture. So instead of okay, I'll just rename this as grass painted, and I'll load that over here, grass painted. Instead of this, if I make another attribute called grass texture, so this is grass based on the texture. So what I can do is load that over here, grass texture, and since we don't have any values painted on this, it's not going to show us any grass. So what we can do is you can either assign, if you assign some values on this in the grass texture attribute, so your grass is going to show up, but then it's showing up everywhere. So what you can do is you can go to the attribute and attribute sample texture and derive this grass texture attribute with the help of sample texture. So first thing we need to do is click on the texture and use some texture from here. I'll just bring some Musgrave simple texture and increase the contrast maybe, and decrease the intensity, something like this. So we have some texture. So what we want is this attribute simple texture to use this texture which we are using over here. And you can either use the UV map if you already have a UV on this, or you can use position, just like the mapping coordinates, object, position, UV. So mapping is based on the position, and then in the result we want this texture to affect our grass texture attribute. And as soon as I do that, you can see the values are being influenced by this texture, which for some glitch I can't see. So now if you increase and decrease the size of this texture, or increase the contrast of this, decrease the brightness, or do anything in this texture, or even if you load up any other texture, that's going to influence your attribute. So this is another method. Now I know I'm getting carried away, but it's important to discuss over here. Another cool thing you can do, you can combine both the attributes, the one where we painted the grass and the one where we using the texture, and we can mix both of these attributes just like we mix the material. So if I use grass texture and the grass painted, and then the result can be a totally new grass at the grass texture plus paint. So a new attribute, or you can give it any simple name, call it final grass. Now you can use this final grass in the point distribution. Now what is happening is, if I factor it 0, then you will be able to see only the grass that is being generated from the second attribute. And if we do it, make it 1, then we are loading up the first attribute, object mode. So basically you can mix two attributes, and this is where the fun begins. So now we have talked enough about the grass. So in this case, I'll just use the textured grass. Now in the similar way, you can also distribute your stones. So point distribute, and plug this one into geometry, and join this one into geometry over here. For now, I'll just disable the grass, and let's make stones over here. Weight paint on the stones. Let me just plug this one. So I just want some stones over here. And now what we can do is, okay, just to keep the workflow simple, I'll just hide the upper area for now. So we can just focus on the stones. So we distributed some points, and these are called, we are going to use the stones attribute. So based on the stones, it's going to influence the position of the, so we have the stones attribute loaded over here. And now what we can do is just increase the numbers, and in the point instance, and load the collection of the stones. So stones final, and disable the whole geometry. Now you have some stones. So 0.5 maybe, yeah, we don't want too many stones. What you can do is point scale and make these small. So we have grass, we have stones, we have the ground. Now I would just like to discuss one more example, and I know it could be a bit difficult for beginners to follow up on this, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So just to simplify, I'll just get rid of these attributes, the painted and all that, and I'll get rid of these textures. So we just have plain grass without any attribute, and then it's distributed everywhere. And then we have some stones. So we deleted all the attributes. We only have some stone attribute, and which is basically, we can, okay, let's just delete the stone attribute as well and keep it simple for the beginners. So what you can do is you can use the position of the stone to affect the position of the grass. So if I bring one attribute proximity over here, right before the point distribution. So we want this attribute proximity to use the geometry of the ground, and the proximity target should be the stones. So these stones, whatever stones that are generated on top of the ground, are the proximity target. And whatever information comes out of it, the proximity information, let's call this one stone proximity. So we have an attribute called stone proximity. Now, in the grass distribution, if I load up the stone proximity, so you will be able to see something. Now, if I create one attribute called the same attribute called stone proximity, just to visualize what is going on, you should be able to see something over here. Sorry. Yeah. So based on the stones, it's painting the weight paint. So if I have more stones, or whatever the position of the stones is, so let's say if I do transform to the points, so let's say if I move these stones, so based on the position of the stones, it's painting the data on with the proximity data. It's making an attribute which is being stored in the stone proximity. Based on that, the grass is being generated, because we are using that for the distribution of the grass. Now what you can do is you can control this further with attribute map range, just like how you use it in the shader editor. So if I use attribute map range, now I can use I can load up the same stone proximity. I want this attribute to be affected with the attribute map range, and the result should be overwritten in the attribute proximity as well. So you can either make a new one or just overwrite it. All right. And then if you use the new one, then make sure to use the new one over here. So now you can use the map range to control the influence. And then you should be able to see, yeah, there you go. So in the object mode, you can see wherever the stones are, around that there is no grass. And just to show you this example, I'm making it much more evident. Otherwise you don't have to actually you can pick any kind of distribution you want. Let me just decrease the density. So you can control and combine and distribute the grass in so many ways. So now after this, you can bring attribute sample texture, combine it, mix it, or even paint, combine all three together with the multiple mix nodes and keep on improving. And all this is procedural network. At any point of time, if you feel like you just need some bigger stones, then you won't have to adjust your grass again. So everything else will be automatically adjusted. So this is the reason the geometry nodes is the new hype. Something like this wouldn't have been possible in the old particle system that we have. So similarly, you can, if you want, you can use the skulls collection, and you use that as a proximity as well if you want. So but I'm not going to overcomplicate it. This was just to give you an example. Now I can just load up the old file. So this was the setup without the proximity. I'll keep it this way because this was simple and this is what I need. After this, we can just load up the bottle. All we need is just put some stones over here, and I can do that without explaining. I can just fast forward the video. So layout markup stones. So I'll just bring back the stone collection that I have. I'll make duplicate of this and use the move these on you move these into a new collection called final stones on ground, because we don't want these to stay in the same collection, because this collection is being used by the stones, and it can interfere with that. So let's put everything over here. And what we can do now is just disable the grass for now and focus on these stones only. I'll enable the snapping, go to the face mode, align rotation to target, project, individual, and just start moving things around. We have the grass, we have the ground. Now you can just keep on playing around. I mean, you can just play around if you want more stones, less stones. If you want to randomize these stones, you can do that. Attribute, randomize, type scale over here. Scale, sorry, no caps. So it's so much more flexible, guys. And now that you have your view in front of you, and you have a texture which is being used for the grass, and you can just play around with the grass texture and all that. I think we are done with this. Yeah, it's looking good. So that's about it for this chapter. If you find the geometry node thing too much, just take a simple approach. Just paint something in the attribute of the ground and just load the simple point distribution method. Forget about the proximity, forget about the other fancy texture thing. If you're not able to do it, we will talk about that in the dedicated series, which is going to be short series, just like the RBD simulation series. So maybe 4 or 5 chapters just to warm up with the geometry nodes. So don't stress about it too much. We will take care of that in the future. I'm working on it. All right. So just tweak a few things. After this, all you need to do is focus on every part, like here, 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 and just it's all about fine tuning. Like these are such sensitive numbers, like a small change can actually make your layout cleaner or messy. So just pay attention and work on it, and I will clean it up and load the file into the next chapter. I don't want to actually bother you with the small details. So more or less we are done. So in the next chapter, what we're gonna do is work on the lighting part and fix complete the lighting and tweak the materials. Speaking of the materials, one thing I forgot to mention, the final skull model that we have, just make sure to select all these skull models that we have and select the final model of the skull. Even though we transferred the object data, we forgot to transfer the material. So use this link material, just link material as well. There you go, you have the materials. So I'll see you guys in the next chapter, and if you're new to this channel, just subscribe, check out the Patreon. If you want to support this channel, you can also join the YouTube membership, which is very affordable. So stay tuned, subscribe. Very soon I'm going to upload the next chapter. We will talk about the lighting and all that cool stuff. All right, so let me know what your thoughts are about this one, and if you have any technical difficulties, comment below and let other people and myself help you out. All right, so see you around. Take care. Bye.